are listening to a One Pint Stand, a Minnesota craft beer podcast that tells the stories of craft beer in Minnesota and beyond. So kick back, relax, and grab a cold one. The show starts now. I also want to take a minute and say that my curiosity for recording my own voice came in a large part from the encouragement and support of my dad. I want to dedicate this episode to him. He really enjoyed grabbing a beer with me when we were together, and he got a real kick out of listening to the various stages of where I was with coming up with an idea for this podcast to now where it's taken on a little bit of a foothold in the queues for people who follow the Minnesota craft beer scene. Unfortunately, my dad passed away on Monday, June 16th, after a short battle with brain cancer. To say he is going to be missed is an understatement. When I was little, I would record all sorts of nonsense on his professional recording equipment that he used for his job. I spent hours putzing away and figuring out how to record and edit using only my curiosity as a guide. As I look back now, I realize that he is probably a big reason why you're listening to me right now. So, Dad, thank you for all the encouragement, and I can't wait to cheers with you again someday. I love you. Hello, my name is Dan Bobian, and I write, produce, and host a One Pint Stand. I'm ecstatic that you're listening. This episode is proudly sponsored by Padraig's Brewing, who is carrying on the tradition of the Irish Ale House, which has served as a vital, fun-filled community gathering space outside of home and work for as long as anyone can remember. They are located at the corner of Broadway and Central in Northeast Minneapolis. Make sure you check them out. On this episode, my guest is Matt Johnson of Scientia Beverage Consulting. We met at Steel Toe in St. Louis Park to talk about the numbers and analytics of the beer industry, as well as what he does for Maui Brewing. Matt's ability to understand and interpret the metrics of craft beer is an absolute marvel. If you are a brewery owner and you feel like you could be more profitable, or maybe you're mulling a change in your business to increase efficiency, Matt is the person to talk to. In addition to being a certified number muncher, he's tremendously passionate about craft beer and loves to travel for it. Now, if you're a pint hoister or keg stander supporter, you get to hear some great data-based insights on taproom pricing, as well as a deep dive into a Midwestern craft beer gem that often gets overlooked as a beer travel destination. So let's head out to the Steel Toe Brewing Taproom for my chat with Matt Johnson of Scientia Beverage Consulting. Cheers. Welcome to another on-location episode of a One Pint Stand. I'm your host, Dan Bobian. Today, my guest is Matt Johnson of Scientia Beverage Consulting. Thank you for joining me. I've known you for a handful of years, but you've been very much involved with beer. So I think I'm really excited to have a conversation with you and kind of delve into some of the numbers of the industry, as well as I know you are a very passionate consumer of beer, traveler for beer, brewer of beer, judge of beer. But for the audience to get a little bit of sense of who you are, I always like to start off with a couple introductory questions.
Lay it on me.
All right. So the first one is, what is your favorite Minnesota craft beer?
That's toughy. There's a lot of good beer in Minnesota. But one beer that if I see it on draft, I probably always go towards it is Raindrops from Barrel Theory.
Oh, sure.
Easygoing, hazy IPA. It changes batch to batch based on the hops that are available, what they chose, and just probably my favorite one.
Yeah. All right. I know you travel a lot, so I figure this would be a good question. Where's a great place to spend a week in the United States if you want to have a really memorable craft beer experience?
again, a lot of good places, but one that I really enjoy going to is Denver.
Okay.
There's a lot of good things to do. There's a lot of hikes you can do. There's a lot of venues that you can go actually like listen to concerts, see things, and then from the beer perspective, covers every single avenue you could want to go down. They have Beer Style Lager House that's focusing on German beers. They have Cohesion focusing on Czech lagers. They even have don't remember the name of them, but there's a place that just does like English style milds and just cask ales.
Oh, Hogshead?
Yes, Hogshead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I want to have my ashes sprinkled in their parking lot. I love Hogshead. That's one of my favorite places.
and it's easily walkable as well, which is always something you want to go to, when you're having a few beers.
Right. I don't trust myself on a Lime scooter after beer number 4. When's the last time you went to Denver?
Last year for the Great American Beer Festival, I judge every year the festival.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
So get to judge the entire week, hang out, go to a couple industry events, and then you also get to go to the actual festival itself, which is nice. And you have nice judge badge, which you get a little bit more on your pores each time.
Yeah, that's. How long have you been judging for GABF?
Last year was just my second time for GABF.
Okay.
Hoping that this year will be my third.
Yeah.
And once you judge the Great American Beer Festival about 5 times, you're then eligible to judge the World Beer Cup.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that seems like that would be a really interesting festival to participate in that capacity.
You meet a lot of folks from the industry that you've looked up to
your
whole career, like people that have been around forever, like Pete from Pete's Wicked Ale. I mean,
sure.
You get to judge with folks like that are just so knowledgeable and have been around for decades from the beginning of the industry.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've only been to GABF once, but I'd love to go back. It was a great experience. I feel like I was kind of deer in the headlights my first time, just kind of because there's so much to do.
So much going on.
You really have to have a plan. I think I was just a little too in awe, so I have to get back.
This year's really cool because they moved it to be outside, which will either be, either fantastic because it won't be raining,
right,
or it'll just be a little bit of a slush fest. But in any case, the smells will be a lot better being outside instead of a bunch of sweaty beer nerds inside a warehouse.
Right, they should have everybody go through one of those car washes and just as you come in, just make sure you've got the Old Spice. Maybe Old Spice should sponsor GABF if they ever want to have it
instead of a mist tent, just an Old Spice tent.
I think that could be good. All right, last question, and this will be controversial, I think. What is your favorite local Oktoberfest and why? And the only reason I ask that because I've run into you at many a time up at Lupulin, and you are in the full, authentic Lederhosen garb.
Yeah, I've owned that for a handful of years now. We always throw an Oktoberfest party at our house every year.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Once you've thrown it a couple of times, you need the Lederhosen.
Yes.
And being in Minnesota, it's nice to be able to wear it around at all the different Oktoberfests. We have so many that go on. But I do love Lupulin's Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
They do a great job throwing it on. They always have both the Fest beer and the Märzen. And as, someone who's lucky enough to judge the Märzen category and watch them win that category, Great American Beer Festival is really nice to see. Yeah,
that was really exciting last year. I always feel that Lupulin's lagers really, they almost outshine their hoppy beers, which, their namesake really connects with hops, but
Dortmunder's won a bunch of awards.
Oktoberfest, their Barrel-Aged Doppelbock, they all do really well.
Their new light lager is phenomenal. Especially the one with lime. Oh, beautiful beer.
Yeah, I was there over the weekend for their 11th anniversary party, and I had a couple of those light lagers. That's just a tasty all-around beer.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to have a beer you can actually drink a few of, and feel okay afterwards.
Oh yeah. We'll get into that later. I think that's a trend that I'm, as a 47-year-old who's getting longer in the tooth by the minute, I feel like those low ABV beers are really nice and really necessary.
Instead of drinking a few and ended up skinny dipping in Lake Superior.
That's right. Which nothing wrong with that. Who doesn't love a dip in a Great Lake? But what got you into craft beer?
College, when I was down in, I went to college in Atlanta.
Okay.
Right, really, really close to Sweetwater. So Sweetwater 420 ended up being our go-to drink just because we had some older siblings of some of the friends that I hang out with was very into craft beer. So I think a lot of Sweetwater 420 was the go-to. Either that or PBR. Depends on the environment.
Sure,
what you're going for.
Yeah.
But fell in love with just the intensity and flavor of that. But then when I came back after school, I just drink more and more craft beer, trying different things, learning what a sour is, what like super hazy IPA is, and then because I was interested in craft beer, got into homebrewing, and then spiraled from there.
Okay, spiraled in the best way possible.
Yes.
There's a lot of bad ways to spiral, but spiraling into a hobby with so many avenues to kind of really pique your curiosity, I think that's part of it. Did you grow up in Minnesota, or where did you grow up?
I did not. I'm a transplant.
Okay.
So I grew up in St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Not a bad beer town to grow up in.
There's a lot of good beer in St. Louis. It's nice to be able to go back and be able to enjoy craft beer.
Okay. St. Louis, I think, I don't know why more people don't talk about it as being, I mean, everybody knows it because of its influential role in beer history in the U.S. and the world, but from a craft beer perspective, St. Louis has a lot to offer.
Yeah, and I mean, Schlafly's been around for, almost 30 years, I would say by now. And I mean, the water's just meant to be great because, AB made sure that they had good water to make beer, so,
That's right.
Craft beer can take advantage of that.
Yeah. So St. Louis, okay, interesting. My first time going down to Missouri in the summertime, I was woefully unaware and unprepared for how hot it gets. Driving through, because I live in St. Paul, so I drove down 35. You get to like Kansas City, and I got out of the car, and I'm like, is something wrong with my thermometer? It says 103, and then I got out like, oh no, that is an accurate temperature.
No, you can cook an egg on the sidewalk on some of those days. Yeah, and it's humid too. It feels like you're swimming.
Yeah, it's just, which is why it's nice, in the summertime to visit a tap room, because typically they will have something delicious to drink and some air conditioning. So you grew up in St. Louis. What brought you to? What college did you go to?
Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. Yeah.
Okay. So what was your background education wise?
Yeah, so I have a master's in artificial intelligence and computational theory. So I was a straight coding, sit at a computer.
Okay.
I worked for Boeing on the defense side for a while.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. I'm a nerd. That's basically what it comes down to.
You're a number muncher.
Yes.
That's the people in the old enough will get that reference. But so doing all that, how did you find your way into beer?
Yeah, so after I was kind of done being a coder, wanted to be closer to business, I did management consulting for a while when I moved up here, actually. When I made the shift, worked downtown for a consulting firm and doing some stuff in technology, but still the passion for beer grew and grew. I mean, got more into beer judging, became president of the Minnesota Homebrewer Association, so it's just very close to the industry. And the opportunity arose where I kind of take that passion for beer with kind of the data and consulting and business skills that I'd kind of acquired over time when a position opened up at Shell's, and I just honestly jumped on it. I was like, I love beer. I love data. Let's go do this.
Yeah.
So kind of just saw the opportunity arise, and they're one of the few breweries that were kind of hiring that type of position. That's how I got into it. Yeah.
When you think about, we'll talk about the general public like myself who have maybe not a background in statistics or analytics, although over the years I do pretty well in fantasy baseball. So that's as
and that's saying something. There's a lot of games for fantasy baseball.
And analyzing numbers that's as far as my expertise can reach. I'm always curious when I'm talking to brewers and brewery owners about there's so many different numbers to pay attention to. help me and kind of, I don't want to say novice, but just the average craft beer fan, what are some things or numbers that we should be aware of when we're thinking about, analyzing like whether a brewery is successful or like the health of the craft beer market? Mm-hmm. What should I pay attention to?
Yeah, if it's a brewery that distributes, one thing you can kind of take a look at is how much shelf space they have. So a term that's used in the beer industry is placements or pods. And it's just like how many SKUs do they have sitting on the shelf in liquor stores or any store that sells alcohol. And a good indicator of health of a business is having a lot of placements is what you're kind of aiming for.
Okay.
And especially, from the brewer side, they're going to be looking at the velocity and the movement, but it's kind of hard to tell from our side of it. But also looking at the capacity utilization of the breweries. So are there butts and seats at the end of the day? If there's butts and seats, it means they're spending money.
Yeah.
And that's a good sign as well. But there's, from the health of the industry, there's some places you can kind of look online of folks that are interpreting the nitty-gritty data for regular consumers. So, like, Brewbound is a great resource. They go into it. They work with a lot of different firms and analyze scan data, which scan data is just when, any item, actually, food, alcohol, beverages, gets scanned at a grocery store, at Total Wine, it gets sent as quote-unquote scan data.
Yeah.
There's folks that analyze that to a billion different ways.
Okay.
And being able to look at those resources is probably the easiest way as a consumer.
Okay.
Instead of having to go and look at it all yourself.
Yeah. You've said SKU. What is that? Is that just a particular brand? Like, we're talking. So we're here. I should mention this. We're here at Steel Toe Brewing in St. Louis Park, and they distribute. So like, would a SKU be like size 7, size 4, different brands or?
Yeah. So it would a SKU. It's basically a barcode at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it would be size 7 6-pack of cans.
Okay.
In comparison, a different SKU to be size 7 6-pack or a 4-pack of bottles or something. So
okay.
it goes down to like the specific like barcode that would be used, and it gets correlated to a SKU. What SKU stands for? No idea.
Oh, okay. But we'll leave that mystery up to the folks at Google. You're a brewery. You're a production brewery. You're going into. Is there a difference when a brewery is looking at trying to get into like a big box store like Total Wine versus Shorewood Liquor, and do placements? First of all, when you say placement, I'm assuming like
literal
on the shelf. Yeah. Okay, so I know that if you're eye level, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like down in the bottom.
Yeah, you don't want to have people bending over trying to,
old folks like me start making popcorn with my back when I bend over to look at what's down there. Do placements, depending on the size of the store, vary, or is it just like if we can be eye level in a cooler, that's our number one priority?
Yeah, number one is in a cooler. You want your stuff cold
at
the end of the day. You don't want to just be sitting on the shelf warm. But being in a chain, so Total Wine being a chain, there's a whole other process to get your placement.
Okay.
They start figuring out what brands they're going to put on the shelf usually like 6 months in advance for like especially flagship beers.
Okay.
And it's a lot harder to like determine what your placement's going to be in a chain. Whereas in a smaller store like a Shorewood, a South Lindale, a France 44, you're working with them directly instead of working with like corporate chain folks.
Okay.
And again, it is important that you're higher up, but and you can talk with the owner, talk with the beer buyer, whoever that is, to figure out where you're going to be. But again, you can advise, but you can't tell them where to put you.
Sure. Right. Yeah. That's interesting. I guess I didn't realize how much further out, like the bigger stores. I guess that makes sense.
And especially if it's like a grocery store or something like that, because they're not just looking at alcohol. They're looking at food.
Yeah.
They're looking at sodas and trying to figure out like where they're going to put everything in the entire store.
Yeah. That's so crazy. You cross the border to Wisconsin. I was in Milwaukee for spring break. And just stopping to get gas, you walk in, you see like end caps of New Glarus.
So much New
I'm
Glarus.
just like, what?
Yeah. Whenever I'm on a road trip, we usually stay at a cabin every summer over in Wisconsin. It's as soon as you cross the border, get your gas and get your spotted cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy. So SKUs are important. Placement's important.
Mm-hmm.
Is it necessarily? Does it mean that the brewery's bad if you're on the bottom shelf?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, you got it on the shelf. At the
Right,
end of the day.
yeah.
That's good news. And you can then, once you're on the shelf and start selling beer, make the argument of why you should go higher up. If you're like, hey, our velocity, and velocity is just literally means kind of what you think it would be. It's just how many cases of beer are you selling per day, per week, per month, etc. If you have a high velocity, let's move ourselves up on the shelf in comparison to another SKU that's not really moving. So having that type of data is great and powerful for breweries to be able to make that sales pitch to move it up.
Yeah. Now, I assume the strategies for a brewery that's maybe like 2,000 barrels and under is different from a brewery that's maybe in the 4,000 or 5,000 barrel range. How is that? What's the plan? Like, if I'm a brewery and I'm on the smaller side, is it worth it for me to even try to get into a big box store, or do I need to like try to find those more local kind of mom and pop places to try to break in?
Yeah, I mean, once you get big enough, then there's also the difference of like, am I self-distributing or am I using a distributor, which also makes a difference because the distributor is going to control a little of this. But from a brewery perspective, the smaller you are, the less likely you want to go into a big store unless you want to make that jump into increasing production because you just can't fulfill the orders.
Yeah.
For example, Total Wine, when they place orders, it's usually around 250 to 300 cases at a time for a big brewer.
Oh, okay.
So lots of beer, and it's a month, and they want to be able to keep that stocked. So they're
Right.
like, we need 250 to 300 cases of beer to put on the shelf on this spot every single month.
Yeah.
And so going into Total Wine's one thing. Grocery stores like Cub or like even local Targets is another story because they're not going to be moving as much beer as a Total Wine. And maybe you want to get into some of those local chains in comparison to big box stores. Mm-hmm. But you just have to make sure you can fulfill orders because once you stop filling orders, you're not getting back on.
And that's really interesting to hear. That makes total sense. Beer trends change. 10 years ago, what was popular on tap rooms in beer bars was different. Well, there used to be beer bars. For those of you younger folks listening, there was a time when you could walk into a bar and they'd have 72 craft taps. I don't know, those are you gotta really search for places like that. But beer trends, what breweries are putting on tap seems to kind of evolve and change as drinking habits evolve and change. I think in Minnesota, the craft beer boom was happening in 2010. That's when I remember spending a lot of time in the liquor store looking at different regional brands and being like, I've never heard of this place. I wonder if that's interesting. And then the tap room bill happens, and now you've got a lot of breweries producing stuff in their tap rooms, getting in. I mean, I'm sure that back in the day, it was maybe easier to try to get that ideal placement. Now there's just a ton of competition.
Yeah.
And I wonder, talking about beer styles, what have you noticed over, say, let's look at the last 5 years of beer styles that are, who are the risers, who are the fallers, who are the ones that are just kind of, chugging away and still holding their own as like a very consistently, popular style.
Yeah, it shouldn't come too much surprise that hazy IPA the past 5 years is exploding, and it's one of the few styles that continues to grow. I mean, especially when it comes to like imperial double IPAs, for some reason it just keeps going and going. When
That's
you look at
so crazy to me.
Yeah, it's
Because everything I hear is like people are not drinking as much, and those of us that are, we want less potency.
Yeah, so it's kind of a split. There's the side of it that is folks are when they are drinking or when they drink something that's bigger, heavier, more intense, more flavor. And then there's the other side of it, which is I just want to enjoy a lager, like the Steel Toe Vienna lager, than chugging down here.
Yeah.
It's just be able to kick back, relax, and have a lower ABV and be able to, just enjoy my time instead of having a bad time tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not the young whippersnapper I used to be, sadly. But you are seeing lagers starting to gain some trend. Another thing that just kind of came out, I think, in the last month was you're starting to see things like shandy radlers.
Okay.
Some wheat ales as well gaining popularity, which is really interesting when you think of those are usually fruited as well. So bring in some of those kind of non-beer flavors into beer to kind of cover the trend of RTDs exploding.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to see more amber ales and brown ales. But I'm like, I feel like my drinking demographic is trending more towards dinosaur than it is young whippersnapper. So I think that maybe what I like is not really what the general populace really wants.
I know you're seeing more breweries release, that nostalgic, like classic style, lager brands, like Revolution Brewing in Chicago when they released Cold Time. It's just like this old light blue coloring, the font that just looks like it's from the 70s. And a lot of breweries are kind of leaning into that, creating a classic nostalgia look lager or a light lager that's easily sell. It can get a lot of placements. People like a lager having it on tap, and especially for like events and venues too. It's easy to get those spots too with them.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive because when I was first getting into craft beer, nobody wanted anything that resembled the beers that their grandparents drank.
What they like to call piss water.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so bad at this. I can never remember a joke on the fly. But what do having sex in a canoe, Coors Light have in common? Both fucking close to water, whatever. That kind of mantra or whatever, the old adage. And now the attitude has definitely shifted about those. Even the macro beers. I mean, you mentioned PBR. I know a lot of people. I spent a lot of time at Wandering Leaf Brewing, and they go through a lot of hams. That's an old brand, local.
Yeah.
It's the land of sky blue waters. Yeah. But the narrative has changed on those. Why do you think lagers are starting to kind of like, be able to compete for space, compete for attention with IPAs, which I think are just always going to be
they're not going away.
The king of the mountain.
I think it's just like a cycle at this point. I think when the American craft beer came around, scene came around, was growing, we don't want to be like anything like the macro lagers or those breweries. We want to create our own scene. We don't want to be like our grandfathers. That's their beer.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, now with the newer generations coming along, they've grown up with all of that being there. Their dad's beer is an IPA.
Yeah.
It's like hazy, it's a stout, it's pure, whatever like craft brewers are putting on. So now it's kind of coming back full circle, and that the lager's coming back because it's not what their dad was drinking, know, and it's also meeting the demands of the newer generations not wanting to drink as much. They're also very health conscious as well, which also kind of fits in that a lager is going to be lower calories. A lot of people don't know, like an IPA. I mean, the calories are pretty intense in some of those hazy double IPAs.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of stuff in there. Yeah, one of the things that I wonder about is, as you're talking about, things that are cyclical. I heard a theory. Because I'm here 1,000,001 reasons why young people aren't drinking, and one theory I heard, and at first I was like, "That's crazy," but then I'm like, "Okay, this kind of makes sense." There's a generation of kids. I call them kids. They're coming into the legal drinking segment of consumer, they don't want craft beer because when they were little, they got dragged to craft breweries by their parents. Have you heard that before? And do you think there's any is there any truth to that?
I'm not sure if there's I mean, somewhat. I mean, I can see that being for some folks. I don't think it's majority of kind of the stats, but you definitely can see like a kid that was dragged to the brewery every weekend with their parents and their parents' friends, not wanting to hang out there.
Right?
Like,
yeah.
It's like I've been here, and it's my parents' place. I don't want to go be there.
Yeah.
The more interesting thing about the newer generation is, especially when it comes to stats and folks saying the newer generation isn't drinking as much, most of the newer generation isn't legal to drink yet. They're just getting to age. So I've always loved when people are like, only like 13% of Gen Zers or whatever the new generation is drinking. It's like, well, there's a large portion of those that aren't eligible to be, or let's say shouldn't be drinking.
Right, exactly. I worry about some of my seniors at high school because I'm like, you better just don't. Just
give it a few years.
Yeah, just wait. You'll like it more. As you're thinking about, this is something that we hear a lot, like craft beers on life support. From an analytics standpoint, what do you think? Are we kind of at the end? Is craft beer has kind of run its cycle, or they always say that when economic times are bad, there's, alcohol is kind of recession proof, but now we're getting this like health conscious, like how does that, there's a lot of factors I think that are playing into it that weren't a thing before.
Yeah.
What is that? Like, what do you look at? How do you interpret, how do craft breweries try to vie for bringing people in?
Yeah, I mean, economic conditions is definitely something that we can't control. That is definitely going to affect folks. They're going to be more cautious of spending money. They're going to be more sensitive to price fluctuations. It's something that I like to look at as price elasticity, which is just how we last, how much of a change in price are consumers willing to take? Are they willing to take that dollar increase on a pack of beer? Or are they willing to take $2? Or are they, if you increase price by $1, I'm not going to buy the beer.
Yeah.
And that's something that should definitely be taken into consideration when you're starting to look at it.
As you look at numbers, what's kind of like the threshold where people are like, yeah, that's too much?
I mean, it changes month to month, really. And I don't know if there's a hard number on what that is. But people are really not as elastic as they used to be in terms of how much they're willing to spend on something that is considered a luxury. I mean, I like beer a lot, but, if you're getting to like $30 for a 4-pack, I don't know if I'm going to spend that money.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, you love Raindrops, any hazy IPA, and we have a lot of really great local options. And I know you trade a lot for beer. Yeah. You probably have your eyes set on like all across the country. There's great hazy IPAs that you're trying to get your hands on. What did the consumers, what do the numbers say is kind of like that breaking point where like, nope, we've gone into the territory of absolute absurdity with pricing for a 4-pack of 16-ounce cans?
Yeah, I would say I've been seeing folks feel a lot less comfortable on purchasing a 4-pack once it breaks that $20 mark. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of beer that's over the $20 mark for a 4-pack, and it's reasonable when you think about how much like ingredients and how expensive all the like actual resources that go into making beer is on some of those. I mean, they're putting like 7 different hops in those beers, or 9 pounds per barrel in some crazy cases. And I haven't seen it break $30, but I would expect that would definitely be a breaking point.
Oh, yeah. At that point, I'm just going to grab a bottle of bourbon and call it a day.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not an idiot. When you're talking to breweries about, do you do, in your Scientia consulting business, do you have a lot of conversations about what price make sense?
Yeah, actually, I've done this for a couple of breweries now, creating pricing models to help them out. Through the Scientia work, it's creating a model that shows, based on all the resources we have, what in the margin that we're trying to get at the end of the day, including overhead costs. So how much is the rent, or how much is our mortgage, how much is our labor, how much does the malts, the hops, our water bill, all of that. What price do we need to set that we can make pay and hopefully make some additional money on top of that, to pay for expenses that come up. And you can create models on that, and then on top, then after that, start looking at changes over time on resources and how that affects that bottom line. So say there's some crazy parking situation on a certain straight and the costs go up on
God, I hope that never happens.
Yeah, it's for example, if you're pulling European hops, European malts, and those have to come over on container ship, and gas prices have gone up.
Yeah.
How do we need to change our prices so that we can maintain that margin that we're looking to get on that?
How difficult is it out there? I mean, if a brewery came to you and was like, Matt, we really want to get into the production, getting into liquor stores. What advice do you give that brewery owner?
Be ready for the tough conversations and be ready with the data. The easiest way to sell yourself is be able to say, hey, we're in all these accounts. These accounts are doing, and when I say account, I mean like a store.
Yep.
We're moving. We're flying off the shelf. Hey, store across the street, they're doing great. We're selling their X amount of cases of beer, and we're moving at Y velocity. Or even just get them excited about your product. Bring in some samples. Taste with them. If you have the opportunity, sometimes it's hard to get the hold of the beer buyer and be able to sit down with them. But, if you're able to, share the beer. Talk about the beer. Show your excitement, and don't make it feel like you're dragging your feet or dragging their feet.
Right.
Because the industry may not be strong right now, but it's still an exciting industry, and it's something that folks are very passionate about, and your passion can help sell your beer.
Yeah. That's great advice. I think you're right. It still is really fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's hard, but it's still fun, and it's beer.
Well, I think people don't open breweries because they think they're going to, if they're realistic, I should say realistic people don't open breweries to think that they're going to get rich. Realistic people open up breweries because I think they want to add to they want to strengthen the fabric of whatever community that place is in. I think about, where we're at right now, Steel Toe.
Yep.
This is such a great place and has been such a community place for St. Louis Park for many, many years. And as I was getting set up, I ran into a couple former coworkers who are met for a beer here, and it's just like, this is a great place to gather.
Yeah, I think they're great third spaces.
Yep, and I think playing into that is a part of it, and with all the different changing tastes and wants for the consumer, offering those things, but also offering a place like this where you can come and relax.
Yes.
Get away from the stress of like, okay, I just filled up my car with gas and now I need to talk to my loan officer. Coming in here and having a beer is really important. So I think that's why I'm concerned. I hear like a lot of negative things, but then you go to a place.
There's definitely a lot of negativity right now in the industry, especially when you look at like all the major news outlets. They're just like, craft beer is dead.
Yeah.
It's going nowhere. People aren't drinking as much. And it's like, maybe they're not drinking as much.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not selling as much beer. Maybe we're not exploding as an industry like we were 10, 20 years ago.
That wasn't sustainable.
No, it wasn't.
Like, especially, in Minnesota, we were kind of late to the party. We weren't Denver, we weren't San Diego, but when we started, we came out of the gate pretty strong, I would say.
Yeah.
And now I think we're seeing like, I hate it when somebody says, "Oh, the bubble's bursting." That's the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not. Or am I wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, the idea of having there is a point in which you have too many breweries. We're not Starbucks here. Like we're not going to have one in every single corner.
Right.
Sounds great.
I mean, God, what a time that would be.
But it's definitely not bursting. We still see breweries, like hundreds of breweries opening every year. Right now, closing or outpacing openings,
Yeah.
but we're still seeing breweries open, finding places where they can succeed and create that third space and be able to provide beer and an atmosphere for folks to be able to just relax and enjoy themselves.
Do you think it's still feasible for somebody to open up a brewery with the goal of becoming like Fulton or another larger, mid-size brewery that distributes within their home state and then a little bit outside, or are those days gone?
It's hard. It would be extremely hard. It's just not seeing those kind of breweries that are able to or even want to do that. At the end of the day, I think it's much more realistic when you're opening a brewery to say your site's a little smaller, create a community. Community brewery is where I'm seeing the most growth right now.
Yeah.
And it's where you're seeing, it's hard in scan data to really see how community breweries are doing because they don't sell at Total Wine.
Right.
So
Yeah.
their stuff's not getting shown, but we're seeing a lot of those kind of smaller breweries that do have their focus and have their intention behind their beer and what they're trying to do from like a kind of, again, keep saying third space perspective.
Yeah.
They're having success.
Yeah.
May not be representative in the scan data, but we're definitely, if you look at like the Brewer Association and their surveys and what they're hearing, you are seeing those smaller folks having success.
So how do you measure that then? I guess that's a great question. I mean, we know how to measure like beers on liquor store shelves. If there's no sales data from liquor stores and a brewery is really small, they're mostly tap room only. Mm-hmm. They're not sending kegs to bars that often. How can you tell other than like just anecdotally walking in, oh, this seems like it's always crowded here?
Yeah. So, I mean, internally from a brewery perspective, hopefully you're tracking all of this. There's systems available that help you. I mean, having to write a check at the end of the day, or you're receiving money, so money inflow versus outflow. And hopefully you're keeping track of that on a brand by brand perspective in some shape or form. Excel's pretty awesome. You can do a lot of stuff in that. From the larger industry perspective, the Brewer Association does surveys every year, usually a couple of times throughout the year on various things. So like capacity utilization, they'll even go all the way to like how much are you paying your folks?
Okay.
And what benefits are you providing to your folks? There's a lot of like those type of surveys that go out that you can take a look at, and it's all available on the Brewer Association website as well. But there's no like industry data set that's available in the same way that like you have from scan data.
And I wonder if there was, I wonder if that picture would look different. And I get it's like a lot of the taproom only places are probably producing under 1,000 barrels a year, so it's a drop in the bucket. Yeah. But it's something if you're...
When most of the breweries are that size,
Right, yeah. And I always wonder about that because I know, we hear about like, they come out with a list of 25 largest breweries and you look at the eye-popping amounts of volume that they're doing. But then I'm like, you go to your local spot and there's no statistic data to support this, but I think when I pop into a place and I see regulars, I feel like that's kind of like a good litmus test of the health of a brewery. If you're there and you see the same people over and over again, as a brewery owner, I know like, okay, that's like constant revenue coming in. That's constant resources coming in. And, sometimes they bring friends. And I just have always liked seeing regulars, whether it's a brewery, a restaurant, a coffee shop. I think that's a sign of a healthy ecosystem.
It means you're doing something right.
Yeah. So I wonder if I think that's part of the narrative that maybe people don't always think about or really like want to kind of sprinkle in with the other numbers, but and I think it's still, I mean, in Minnesota, it's such an odd, it's especially if we think about like what's been going on in the state in the last 6 months, how the economy has suffered for, Operation Metro Surge, and I think there's this misconception that it only affected the Twin Cities. We know that's false.
Yeah.
But I think that hit harder than most people realize when you think about when you disaggregate all that data.
Yeah, it definitely had an impact on breweries. I mean, especially folks that were downtown. I mean, folks weren't going out. So it definitely created a huge impact on sales during the months and now even the months afterward as folks are kind of adjusting back to what normal life should be.
Well, I've got like one sip left in this beer here on the home stretch. I think now's a good time to take a break. But I'm having a great conversation with Matt Johnson from Scientia Beverage Consulting, and we're talking numbers, we're talking beer. When we come back, we're going to talk more local Minnesota excitement. You're listening to A One Pint Stand.
Well, it started as a one-night stand. I had 2 pints for lonely hand. Bounced back like a rubber band for 3 pints. Drinking a fourth in the faraway land, but I couldn't make it as a single man. So I married me this beer right here. A pint, a one pint stand.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you're enjoying A One Pint Stand. My aim is to help spread the word about craft beer. Enjoying craft beer is a passion of mine, and I love chatting about it with other people. A One Pint Stand has a goal of helping breweries tell their stories. I love to get out in and beyond Minnesota to visit breweries, beer bars, and meet other interesting beer people. Now, if you're also into those things, you'll probably want to keep tabs on the show. So go ahead and follow A One Pint Stand on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Mastodon. I also started a TikTok account because I was tired of Charles calling me a boomer for not having one. I would also appreciate any and all positive reviews on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts to help make it easier for other craft beer listeners to find us. If you want to be a supporter of the podcast with some extra change that you find in your couch cushions, I have a Patreon. There are 3 different monthly levels of support and priced at $1, $3, or $5 a month. If you pledge at the $3 or $5 monthly level, you get some pretty cool perks. So go to patreon.com and search A One Pint Stand to check it out. We're up to 30 supporters, and I'm really excited about what that means for the show. If you like reading about craft beer, check out my written work on aonepintstand.com. I love to write, and that is where you find my written content covering both the local craft beer happenings as well as my craft beer travels. I truly appreciate you listening and taking time to enjoy our stories. Now, before we head back to the show, I want to talk about this episode's sponsor, Padraig's Brewing, who are recreating classic Irish and English beers using authentic Irish and English grain, yeasts, and hops. Their beautiful tap room and patio are part of a refurbished mattress factory and serve as a community space filled with fun, music, and laughter. Many of their beers are also available in the leading Twin Cities liquor stores and pubs.
How about a beer?
Okay, we're back after a little break to refill our beverages. Matt, what'd you get to drink?
Went with the new hazy. It's a nice 4.9% ABV hazy IPA. Good hop character on it still.
Okay. I had to go with the OG, Sommerweiss.
Beautiful glass.
I know, this is just like such a beautiful... I love this is one of my favorite beer styles that you can't see through.
The OG hazy.
The OG hazy. They do it so well here. This is just like... This is spring, summer in a glass. And it's, we're recording this on June 2nd. The sun is shining, and it's just a great time to be in Minnesota. This is why we live in Minnesota.
Yes, to enjoy the summers.
Just the few days where it's like, it's not super duper humid outside. There's a nice little breeze. It's sunny, like 83 degrees. This is perfect. We're having a great beer conversation. I told you during the break, I'm just getting all excited about hearing all these numbers, and your insights are so just dead on. It's really fun to learn about that, and I think this is the listeners, all 12 of them, are really gonna like this one.
If they're still listening,
if they're still with us after the break, yeah. I want to talk about one of the things you do in addition to your consulting. Right now, you're working for Maui Brewing.
Yes.
In Hawaii.
Well, the breweries in Hawaii.
Right,
yeah,
right,
sadly.
Yes. Yeah, that's. I suppose they can't be like, "Hey, can you make it into the office tomorrow?" It's like, well, you're gonna need to give me some more time. Talk to me about how that opportunity came up.
Yeah. So once I left Shells, was kind of looking for a new opportunity, and I'd post on LinkedIn, "Hey, anyone out there, looking for a data nerd?" And one of their folks I'd actually met when he was the keynote speaker at the Minnesota Craft Brewers Guild conference, Scott. He was I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, he was the keynote speaker, and he attended one of the sessions that I was speaking at, where I was, nerding out over data and software, and he was like, "Oh, like we should connect," and did. And when I was looking for an opportunity, he was like, "I got a job for you," and they created an opportunity for me as data and analytics manager.
That has to feel really nice.
It is nice
when somebody creates a job for you.
Yeah, and started out being a lower number of hours, and just over time has increased the hours just because I guess I was doing a good job.
Yeah. What's the, okay, this might be a dumb question, but I'm not a geography teacher. What is the time difference between here and Hawaii?
Well, they don't do daylight savings, so it was better before, but now it's like it's 5 or 6 hours.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. How does that impact your routine?
I can answer a lot of emails in the morning with folks that are on the mainland. And I guess I've worked for them long enough. I call it mainland. But then, knock out some individual work, and then I'll have meetings in the afternoon / early evening. Sometimes get like a text or a chat or an email at like 8 or 9 p.m. And I'm like, oh, this is almost my bedtime, guys.
That's right. They're just firing up.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So what types of things do you do for Maui Brewing?
Yeah, so one of the major things I do is make sure that their technologies that they leverage are in a good position, that there's good data quality, and the kind of second piece is I do a lot of dashboards and data and analytics for them. So using Power BI to create pretty visualizations, some charts, and just give them the metrics they need at their fingertips without having to search for it or try and find that themselves.
Yeah.
So, for example, how much revenue did we bring in last month? How much costs? Where were those costs? Just having it one place that you can see all of those high-level numbers, and then you can click into them and say, oh, well, these are all our sales from last month that drove that. Oh, here's all of our expenses and where they came from. So kind of similar things I do for my consulting on a smaller basis is doing it on a bigger basis for a bigger brewery.
And Maui, I was just going to ask, what size are they? They're pretty large, aren't they?
Yeah, so I don't think they're in the top 50 anymore, but they were a top 50 production brewery. They've reduced in size and in their distribution footprint. They used to distribute all the way out here in Minnesota, but they don't anymore. It's just kind of along the Pacific Northwest, California, and Nevada, kind of along that area now. Okay. Which makes sense as, beer's made in Hawaii.
Yeah,
pretty
that's
far to travel to make it all the way out here.
That's really, talk about an added expense.
Yes.
Yikes. And which island are they on? Because I'm very, my knowledge about Hawaii is like zero. So are they on the island of Maui?
Yes, they are on the.
See,
good call.
And is that the biggest one? Is that the main?
Kono's probably.
Oh, okay.
On Maui they're the biggest. But Kona's the other one that's pretty large as well. And they do have multiple locations. So on Maui, they have 2 locations. The actual OG brewery spot where they produce all the beer. And then they have another tap room there. They have a tap room in Oahu as well.
Okay.
that was actually the first place I went to from there. So I was vacationing in Hawaii and went to the Oahu tap room.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, it's nice in this day and age where you can work remotely.
Virtually. Yeah, you work remotely.
You can be in Minnesota and work for a brewery in Hawaii.
You know, go over, visit, the brewery and on work trips. Not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and I suppose that's some sort of tax write-off. So that's got to be real nice. How often, do you get the opportunity to go there, to the mothership, as they say?
Yeah, so I've only been working for them since December.
Okay.
And since, and I wasn't working a huge amount of hours from the entire time. So I've only gone over once, but it was for about 10 days. I think 10 days is how long I was there.
That's just marvelous.
Yes.
What is the Hawaii beer scene like?
It's a lot smaller when you think about it. There's not as many breweries. I mean, I visited all of them on Maui when I was there. And they only there's Maui Brewing, Lahaina, and Lahaina owns a second spot they opened up. It used to be another brewery. And then I think there's one Waikiki has a location there, but that's not their main one. That's all that's on Maui. But you also see a lot of imports in terms of it. I mean, you see some from the mainland, not much. And if anything, it's going to be a California beer most likely.
Yeah.
But you do see a large amount of beers from Asia. Actually,
I was just going to say they've got to get stuff from Japan and China. Interesting.
You see some really cool beers from Japan that you do not see in the Midwest at all. So it's like a yuzu lager from Japan.
Okay.
This is really neat. Or I forgot what it was, but it was some green vegetable that they used in the beer in a lager.
Okay.
And that was really cool to see.
Yeah.
You also see a lot more 19.2s as well, being beached.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The big tall guys.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So tell me about your consulting business.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of breweries that could probably use some help, but maybe probably don't have it in their budget to hire a full-time person.
Yeah.
Who's the brewery that needs you? What would they be maybe having some trouble with?
Yeah, so it's kind of the reason I started doing this when I was just kind of at home and wanted to help more breweries around here.
I imagine there's that meme of the from the Narcos show of Pablo Escobar just sitting there. Imagine you sitting there in your lederhosen just thinking, how can I help?
Yeah. With the side pull beer. I did put a side pull in at the house one time.
My God.
Yes.
Okay, next time we're doing this podcast at your place of residence.
Yes. And great back channel Czech Pilsner.
Oh, my God.
Yes. But realizing that most breweries cannot afford a full 40-hour employee doing data and analytics or even just business strategy type work. So wanting to be able to do smaller gigs, smaller projects for breweries. Areas I can help with is pricing strategy. What should our prices be? Being able to figure out how much money are we making at the end of the day. It seems like it should be very obvious, but building in all those costs into a model can be pretty tricky when it comes down to it. And even then starting to help make business decisions as well, or rather data-driven business decisions is something that I've been able to help some breweries with as well. Can we afford an expansion? What hours should we be employing people? What can we afford to buy that fermenter? Should we be expanding to another state of distribution? That's a really hard decision. And data is very, very important when making that call on whether you want to increase your production costs or even work with a new distributor, because you basically sell your rights to your brand when you work with a new distributor. There's a lot of different areas that kind of data influences. I think data should drive all decisions you make, but sometimes it doesn't. We don't have the data, and that's somewhere that I've been able to help a lot of breweries.
Yeah. Well, I feel if you're making decisions without data, you're essentially. You wouldn't just go to the store with a blindfold on. Yeah. So has to be one of the things. you don't need to say which breweries, but how many breweries have you worked with in Minnesota?
About a handful in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do like all over the country, or do you focus on the Midwest? Or
So I've done all over the country.
Okay.
I've done a couple in Hawaii, Maui being one of them.
Yeah.
Done a couple in a few other states as well, but being pretty new from the consulting side of being in the beer industry, consulting in the beer industry,
Yeah.
just kind of starting getting that growing.
yeah, do you feel like there is a lot of room for you to expand with like more places, or is it still are breweries maybe a little gun shy?
It's
like
definitely a hard
because I also
time.
have to imagine it's like once they work with you, you're going to give them some hard truths
Yeah.
about what the numbers say, and
Yeah.
sometimes nobody really
Numbers
wants to
don't lie.
pay for bad news.
Yeah, and it's not just providing numbers. I have been able to create like models that can be leveraged in the future, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I try and create sustainable solutions.
Yeah.
You plug in all your data and it's going to spit out an answer for you, and you can keep
Yeah.
using that over and over. But yeah, it's a hard time to make for a brewery to put any money towards something that's not absolutely necessary
Yeah.
to make beer.
And then there's the flip side of the coin where I would argue that that's, before you buy another piece of equipment, maybe that's probably where you want to
Yeah.
invest.
Or make the
so you at
decision
least
to-
have a game plan.
Yeah, or to make the decision to stop distributing. That's another
Right.
key area, and
Yeah.
something that a lot of breweries are starting to think about is the cost of distributing beer worth it to us, or do we just want to be a tap room?
What are some of because I have to imagine, especially now, that topic comes up a lot. What are the reasons, what are the most common reasons that you hear for people to want to try to persist when you can see it and they can see it, and maybe they haven't accepted that distribution is just not a viable path forward?
Yeah, I mean, distributing is a hard game. I mean, you're spending a lot of money to distribute. One is packaging. Two is the salesperson that's having to go out there. The logistics of driving around, if you're self-distributing, driving is a large cost as well. And then just having to do a ton of events as well if you're trying to distribute. So there's a lot of costs that go into that, and your margins are even lower if you're working with the distributor.
Yeah.
And if you aren't really thinking about all of those, it's something that just everyone's distributing. Why wouldn't I distribute?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you saw about 10 years ago, everyone going into new states. It was just kind of the thing.
Yeah.
And then afterward, you saw a ton of breweries kind of reduce the amount of states
Yeah.
that they're selling into. A lot of regional breweries now are only in about a handful of states instead of trying to distribute across the entire United States.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a number of years ago when a very popular large brewery in Minnesota went to try to break into Colorado. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
There's a lot of breweries in Colorado.
Well, and also it's like, that's like the geographical stopping point for a lot of the West Coast ones that are really popular and huge.
Yep.
They don't go further than the Rocky Mountains.
Yep.
And it's like, so you're a big fish in a medium-sized pond in Minnesota, and you're doing great.
Yeah, and you're not going to be going over there and selling yourself.
No, it's just kind of, but it's kind of like that, it's hindsight is 2020, you can kind of see, but
I mean, it's kind of like the same philosophy as in our jobs, is we're always like looking at that next big promotion. That was like, everyone thought that was the next big promotion for their business, was to go into a new state, and frankly, it's not the best for your business in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Now we've talked numbers, but you're also just, in addition to doing this for work, you are a beer connoisseur and a beer geek.
Yeah, you can call it nerd. It's okay.
Beer nerd.
Yeah,
well, that's
it's
okay. Because, nowadays, the term nerd almost has a positive connotation. But as a child of the 80s, if you were a nerd, that wasn't
the best,
an easy road to hoe. When you think about our local Minnesota craft beer scene, what excites you about it?
I think we have a large variety of very, very high quality beer. I also think we have a lot of areas that are easily walkable as well. It's another thing that's also very exciting. And I think the people that are owners, are brewers, are extremely passionate. I mean, going to the Minnesota Craft Brewers Minnesota Craft Brewers Conference was just the months. I don't know. Time flies.
Yeah.
Is a lot of folks were there and talking with them. Is everyone? Yeah, they're a little skeptical about the industry, but very, very excited and very passionate about what they're doing and how to make and be successful and provide the best experience for folks. And I think it's bringing that kind of Norwegian Midwest vibe into our breweries that are here to create environments that are not just safe but enjoyable to be in.
Yeah. Now you live out in the western part of
in the boonies.
Yeah, I mean my sister lives in Chanhassen, so that's a haul. And I work in Hopkins. I live in St. Paul, so once I'm out in Hopkins, it's just easier to kind of go a little further. Yeah. Where are some of your go-tos as far as like tap rooms? If you've got a Saturday afternoon free, you don't have no yard work, nothing like that. Where are you gravitating towards?
Yeah, I love Back Channel. Folks over there, and this isn't just because they won Brewery of the Year. I went there before it was cool.
Yeah.
But the owners are great. Josh, Melissa, Ollie, Mark. I mean, they're all fantastic people. All the employees are super nice, and they create beers for anyone. I mean, they just put out like 3 new light lagers. Their lager game's always been top notch. Their hazy game's great. They have a bunch of fun fruited Berliner Weisses as well, and they have barrel aged beers as well. Almost always.
I know you're a fan.
I'm a huge barrel aged.
If you pay attention to Matt's Instagram feed, this guy likes his stout.
Yeah, I do love my stout and English style barley wine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I mean, even being that far out, there's a ton of great breweries. Unmapped is fantastic.
Yep.
I mean, another one is Excelsior. Excelsior is also really solid, and their game's been going up and up as well. But I mean, we just have a ton of great breweries. At the end of the day, it's hard to name them all.
Yeah, I think we're lucky. I think and you do a lot of beer traveling too. Mm-hmm. Earlier in the show, you mentioned Denver as a spot that you would recommend if somebody has just a week and they want to go have a really nice craft beer experience. I agree. I'm right there with you. Every summer I itch to go back to Denver, and I need to go. The last time I was there was 2019 for my 40th birthday. I'm like, I want to do a 3-week beer trip to Colorado, and I did that, and it was great. Denver has a lot of great breweries. Mm-hmm. And I think about, when I was first getting into craft beer, people would talk about, Odell, New Belgium, Great Divide as some of these real iconic regional breweries. And when I went there for the first time, I was excited about those. And what I came away with was like, there's a lot of like just smaller little ones. They're fitting a niche, which is really cool. Yes. And I discovered Hogshead, and that was a revelation. Mm-hmm. And so I think about, in Minnesota now, you think there's the big ones, the Summits, the Surleys, the Shells, Fultons, the Indeeds, and then there's a bunch of smaller ones.
Yeah.
I think we have a really healthy beer scene.
Yeah.
And I think that, like you said, we have a lot of variety. Mm-hmm. If you want lagers, you can go to Udapils, you can go to Bad Weather, you can go to Waldman, you can go to Arbeiter. If you are looking for that hazy IPA experience, you can go to Back Channel, Barrel Theory, Loose Line.
Oh, yeah.
I think
so underrated.
Yes. Not enough people are talking about Loose Line. They have great IPAs, and then you go there for your IPA fix,
and then you find like
lagers.
Then you find like Guac is extra. And
Yes. So I think they're doing some good stuff. Obviously, you get outside the 494, 694 loop, you go up to Lupulin. That's I've run into many times there.
I spent a lot of time there for living in Chaska.
Well, one thing I want to give you props because I don't know how you do it, but every year for their big beer week, you get
I get it.
The 8-day
or
shirt.
10-day this year.
And this year, how did you manage that?
Working from home, you can be a little flexible. But the space is set up that you can go work from there, and they have coffee on draft.
Yeah.
So I love their coffee on draft. So go drive up in the early morning, get up there, and just work from the brewery. Have a cup of coffee until it hits happy hour time. Then you switch over to beer.
Yeah, that's just great. That's one of the things I've noticed more places kind of dipping into that. Like, hey, we're paying rent on this building. How can we maximize our hours? Does that come up in a lot of conversation when you're talking to breweries about like, hey, where are these areas where we can maybe find a little bit more revenue?
Yeah, it definitely comes up as you kind of look at your business and figure out where you're spending money. I mean, as you said, you're paying for the building, the rent. I mean, is there an opportunity, get a nice coffee machine, or, is there an opportunity to bring in a pizza oven or something like that?
Yeah.
These different areas where you can bring in money, it definitely comes up in conversations.
I know that there are places in Europe where you can go and do a beer spa. I'm waiting. Maybe Minnesota could be a leader. And, let's say you've
Colorado has one.
Do they really?
They sure do.
Where in Colorado is it?
Oh, I don't remember exactly. It might be in Denver.
Okay.
It's either that or it's a little bit north.
Okay.
But you can go into a tub full of beer.
See, I think that's really, really fun. And I've had several friends who have done it over in Europe, and there's beer bread, there's cheese, there's a tap.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
What else can you want?
That's nothing. That's all I want. A tub of beer, some bread, and some cheese.
Yeah, die happy.
And more beer. Yes, right, exactly. Yeah, I think we have a really good beer scene.
I mean, this is one of the reasons I came to Minnesota. My wife was trying to convince me to move up to Minnesota.
Okay. Now, was she from here?
She's also from St. Louis. So we're high school sweethearts. So we met in high school, but she went to St. Olaf.
But St. Olaf.
Yeah.
Now that's a fun little beer city.
It is.
Go down to Tanzenwald and Imminent, and they've got
church.
Keepsake. Yeah, the chapel is not that far. I've never been to the distillery. So how can people find you and get a hold of you? Let's say a brewery or was listening to this and like, wow, we need all the help. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I have a website. So if you Google Scientia Beverage Consulting, you'll probably find it. I don't remember the exact URL because I'm terrible at advertising.
I will put a link in the thing so people can just do a click.
Yeah, and you can reach out to me over there or, text me. Not going to throw my phone number out over the air, right. But you can email me, johnsonmatthew40@gmail.com. Easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm always on my phone, so reach out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you so much for sitting down and talking beer. This was very enlightening and the perfect way to break up the work week. I was looking forward to a fun and engaging beer chat after work, and you absolutely delivered.
I'm glad. It was good to be here and chat with you.
Yeah, let's get a cheers. Kaboom! And this was a One Pint Stand. Cheers. I thoroughly enjoyed my beer chat with Matt Johnson from Scientia Beverage Consulting. In addition to being a fun dude to talk beer with, he's a genius when it comes to delving into and breaking down the minutia of craft beer analytics. I can think of at least 10 breweries that should probably be giving him a call. The reality is that not every brewery owner is a business person. They might have gotten some good advice on a business plan, but there is not a blueprint for the obstacles and financial setbacks that have occurred over the last few years. That's where Matt comes in. I also want to thank Steel Toe for letting us enjoy flawless beer in a community space. Now, I want to give a special thank you to Brad Ashton, Jason Berg, Marcus Dodson, Chuck Dorsey, Vicky Epper, Daniel Fisher, Todd Fitzloff, Dave Giefer, Matt Holton, Robin Irwin, Brian Ketchell, Sarah Cry, Cable Lefto, Dave Long, Ben Michaels, Brent Newman, Bree Smith, Jesse Storms, Cal Vandyhoof, and Brian Wu for being Keg Stander level supporters of the One Pint Stand Patreon. You have all shown incredible generosity, and I'm grateful for it. Cheers to you all. If you happen to be a Pint Hoister and Keg Stander level supporter of the Patreon, I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the taproom financial things that might explain why pricing is what it is. I'm glad that Matt was able to explain why everybody needs to visit St. Louis for beer as well. They have some tremendous places to enjoy craft beer, and it's just a really fun town. I want to thank the band Quirky for creating a nice little jingle for the podcast. I just love how it turned out, and it adds a really great touch to the show. Thank you so much. Once again, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this episode, Padregs Brewing. They have created a fun-filled community space in Northeast Minneapolis and filled it with classic Irish and English beers. If you're looking for a fun time with some sessionable beer, I suggest that you get over there and check it out. Tell them you heard about them on a One Pint Stand. With that, this has been another episode of a One Pint Stand, a Minnesota craft beer podcast where the pants stay on, but the caps come off. Cheers. As a 47-year-old who's getting longer in the tooth by the minute, I feel like those low ABV beers are really nice and really necessary.
Instead of drinking a few and ended up skinny dipping in Lake Superior.
That's right. Which nothing wrong with that. Who doesn't love a dip in a Great Lake? But